The shuttle came down through the orange clouds of Karath Prime like a small silver bird. Inside, Ambassador Linda Moore sat alone, looking out the window at the alien world below. She could see the great cities of the Karath stretching across the land. Towers of black stone rose toward the sky. Rivers of fire cut through the valleys. It was a world built by predators, for predators. Linda was 53 years old. Her dark hair had gray in it now, and there were lines around her eyes from years of difficult work. She wore a simple gray suit with the Earth Federation symbol on her shoulder. Nothing else. No armor, no weapons, no shield generator. Just cloth and skin. The pilot, a young man named Danny, turned back to look at her. His face was worried. "Ambassador, are you sure about this?" "The Karath are dangerous. Their whole culture is built around hunting and killing. Every other species that meets with them wears full combat armor. The Veilith even bring force shields." Linda smiled gently. "I know, Danny. That is exactly why I will not. I do not understand. You will, someday." The shuttle landed on a wide platform made of dark metal. Through the window, Linda could see the Karath waiting for her. There were 15 of them. The smallest was over 2.5 meters tall. The largest was nearly 4 meters. Their bodies were covered in hard plates that looked like armor, but were actually part of their skin. They had 4 arms each, and their heads were crowned with sharp horns. Their eyes were large and compound, like insect eyes, but they glowed with fierce intelligence. Behind the main group stood 12 guards. Each one carried a weapon that could burn through steel. Danny's hands were shaking on the controls. "Ambassador, please. At least take a sidearm. Something." Linda stood up and straightened her jacket. "The most important battles are not won with weapons, Danny. They are won with presence." She walked to the shuttle door and pressed the release. The door slid open, and the hot air of Karath Prime rushed in. It smelled like sulfur and smoke. Linda stepped out onto the platform, alone, small, soft. The Karath watched her come. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They simply stared at this strange creature that walked toward them without fear. High Predator Voss stood at the front of the group. He was the leader of the Karath Dominion, the most powerful warrior in their empire. He had killed over 1,000 enemies in personal combat. His body was covered with scars that he wore like medals. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, translated by a small device on his chest. "You come alone," he said, "and without protection. Is this human stupidity or human arrogance?" Linda stopped a few meters away from him. She had to look up to meet his eyes, but she did not seem small. Something about the way she stood made her seem larger than she was. "Neither," she said calmly. "It is respect." Voss made a clicking sound with his mandibles. Among the Karath, it meant confusion. "Explain this to me, human. In 300 years of contact with other species, no one has ever come to us without armor. The Tor wear reactive suits that can stop our claws. The Amari bring defensive drones. Even the Veilith, who think themselves so superior, hide behind their shields." He leaned down, bringing his massive head closer to hers. "Why do you come with nothing?" Linda did not step back. She did not flinch. She simply looked into his glowing eyes and spoke. "Because armor would be an insult." The guards shifted. This was not the answer they expected. "If I wore armor," Linda continued, "I would be saying that I fear you, that I believe you might attack me, that I do not trust your honor as hosts." She paused. "Among my people, we have a saying. The most dangerous predator is the one that does not need to show its teeth. I am here to negotiate, High Predator, not to threaten. If I needed armor to feel safe in your presence, I would not be worthy of speaking for humanity." Silence fell over the platform. The wind blew hot and dry, carrying the smell of the volcanic plains beyond the city. Voss stared at the small human before him, and something strange happened. He felt uncertain that in his long life, Voss had faced countless enemies. He had fought creatures with claws the size of swords. He had battled machines of war that could level cities. He had never, not once, felt uncertain. But this human made him feel something he could not name. She was small. She was soft. She had no weapons, no armor, no protection of any kind. By every measure, she was prey. And yet she did not act like prey. Prey ran. Prey trembled. Prey begged for mercy or tried to hide. This woman did none of those things. She stood before him like she belonged there. Like she was exactly where she wanted to be. Like she was in control. The guards felt it too. They were trained to sense danger, to identify threats before they could strike. Everything about this human said she was not a threat. And yet, every instinct in their bodies screamed that she was the most dangerous thing on this platform, that it made no sense. It was impossible, and that made it terrifying. Voss straightened slowly. He looked at his advisors, then back at the human. "You are either very brave or very foolish," he said. "Perhaps both," Linda replied. "But I am also very patient. And I have come a long way to speak with you, High Predator. Humanity wishes to be your ally, not your servant, not your enemy, your partner. Partners must be equals. Yes, they must." Voss studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He stepped aside and gestured toward the path that led to the Great Hall. "Then come, Ambassador Linda Moore of Earth. Let us see if your words have the same strength as your presence." Linda walked forward, passing between the rows of armed guards without a glance. She moved like she was walking through a garden, not a gauntlet of killers. Her footsteps were soft on the metal platform. She made no noise at all. The guards watched her pass, and none of them could explain why their hearts were beating faster. None of them could say why they felt the urge to step back, to give her more room, to make sure they did not get too close. She was just a human. Small, soft, unarmed. But something about her made every predator on that platform feel like prey. 3 days passed on Kareth Prime. The negotiations were slow and difficult, as Linda had expected them to be. The Kareth did not trust easily. They tested everything. They questioned everything. They looked for weakness in every word she spoke. Linda gave them nothing to find each morning. She rose early and walked through the gardens of the diplomatic compound. The plants here were strange and dangerous. Many had thorns that could cut through leather. Some released poison when touched. But Linda walked among them without fear, studying their shapes and colors, learning their secrets. The Kareth guards watched her from the walls. They had been assigned to protect her, but they were also watching for something else. They were looking for cracks in her calm, for moments when the mask slipped, for proof that she was just like every other soft species they had met. They found nothing. On the third night, Linda returned to her quarters after a long session discussing trade routes and resource sharing. She was tired, but her mind was still sharp. It was always sharp. That was how she had survived so many difficult postings. That was how she had become the best diplomat in the Earth Federation. She reached her door and stopped. Something was wrong. The door was unlocked. She always locked it. The lights inside were dark. She always left one light on. A lesser person would have run, would have called for guards, would have retreated to safety and waited for help. Linda opened the door and stepped inside. The room was black. The windows had been covered. No light came in from anywhere. She could not see her hand in front of her face, but she was not alone. "You can come out," she said quietly, her voice calm and steady. "I know you are there. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a shape moved in the corner of the room. It was darker than the darkness around it, a shadow within shadows. Slowly, it took form, a Karth shadow blade. Linda had read about them in her briefing files. They were the elite assassins of the Kareth Empire. Their armor absorbed light and sound. Their training took decades. They could kill a target in a room, full of guards without anyone seeing or hearing anything. This one held a blade in his lower right hand. It hummed softly with energy, the only sound in the room. "How?" the assassin asked. His voice was a whisper, barely louder than breath. "No one has ever detected me before the strike. Not once in 30 years. Linda turned to face him, even though she could barely see his outline. "Your armor absorbs light, but it still displaces air. When I opened the door, I felt the current change. The air moved differently than it should have for an empty room." She took a step toward him. He did not move. "Your thermal signature is masked," she continued. "Very impressive technology. But you still breathe. And your breath carries a smell. You ate Karth spice with your evening meal. It has a very distinct odor. I noticed it the moment I entered." Another step. Still, he did not move. "Also, your left foot makes a small sound when you shift your weight. You favor it slightly. An old injury, perhaps. The muscle never healed quite right. You have learned to compensate, but in complete silence, even the smallest sound stands out." She stopped, just 2 meters away from him. Close enough that he could kill her with a single stroke. "You were not sent to kill me," she said. "If you had intended to kill, you would have struck when I entered. You waited. You wanted to see how I would react. You wanted to test me." The assassin was very still. In all his years, no one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever catalogued his weaknesses so calmly, so completely, as if she were reading from a file. "You are correct," he admitted. "I was sent to test you." The High Predator wished to know if your calm was real or performance. "And what will you tell him?" The shadow blade was quiet for a moment. Then he deactivated his blade. The humming stopped. The room became truly silent. "I will tell him that you are not like other species. You are not prey wearing the mask of a predator. You are something else entirely." He paused. "Something I do not understand." Linda nodded slowly. "Good. Understanding will come with time. For now, it is enough that you recognize there is something to understand. You are not afraid of me. No. Why? I could kill you where you stand. It would take less than a second." Linda smiled slightly. In the darkness, he could not see it. But somehow, he felt it. "Because fear is a choice," she said. "Every living thing experiences the signals of fear. The racing heart, the quick breath, the urge to run. But we can choose what to do with those signals. We can let them control us, or we can acknowledge them and set them aside." She turned away from him and walked to the window. With a touch, she opened the covering, letting the light of the Karath moons flood into the room. "I feel the signals," she said, looking out at the alien city below. "I feel them every time I walk into a room full of predators. Every time I stand before creatures that could tear me apart with their bare hands. But I choose not to let them control me. I choose to be still. I choose to be calm. I choose to be exactly what I need to be." The shadow blade watched her silhouette against the moonlight. She looked small, fragile, a creature of soft skin and thin bones. But he knew now that appearances meant nothing. "My people believe that the greatest predator is the one with the strongest claws," he said slowly. "The sharpest teeth, the hardest armor. We have built our entire civilization on this belief." "And what do you believe now?" He considered the question carefully. In the Karath way, words had weight. They were not spoken lightly. "I believe that we may have been wrong," he said finally. "I believe that there are kinds of strength we have never considered. Kinds of power that have nothing to do with claws or teeth." Linda turned back to face him. In the moonlight, her eyes seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Then perhaps there is hope for our peoples after all." The shadow blade left the way he had come, melting back into the shadows like he had never been there. But he would remember this night for the rest of his life. He would remember the human who had seen him when he was invisible, who had faced him without fear, who had taught him that the most dangerous creature in any room is not always the one with the biggest weapon. Sometimes it is the one who does not need a weapon at all. On the fifth day, High Predator Voss invited Linda to observe the proving dot. It was a great honor, he explained. Very few outsiders had ever been allowed to witness this sacred ceremony. It was the heart of Karath culture, the ritual through which young warriors demonstrated their worth to the tribe. Linda accepted the invitation graciously. She understood what it really was. Another test. Another chance for the Karath to see if she would flinch. If she would look away. If she would show weakness. She would not. The proving arena was a massive structure in the center of the capital city. It was built from the bones of great beasts, creatures that had once roamed Karath Prime before the Karath had hunted them to extinction. The bones had been fused together with metal and stone, creating walls that curved up toward the sky like the ribcage of some ancient monster. Thousands of Karath filled the seats. Their voices created a low rumble that shook the air. The smell of their excitement was thick and heavy, a musk that spoke of blood and battle and primal hunger. Linda sat in the place of honor, next to High Predator Voss himself. Around them sat the leaders of the great houses, the most powerful Karath in the empire. All of them watched the human with curious eyes. "Your people do not have such traditions," Voss observed as the first two warriors entered the arena below. "You have grown soft without the need to hunt." "We have different traditions," Linda replied. "We test each other in different ways. Words, politics, deception." Voss made a sound of contempt. "These are not the marks of true predators." Linda did not argue. She simply watched as the warriors below began to circle each other. They were young, perhaps 20 years old by Karath standards. But they were already massive, their bodies covered in the thick chitin plates that protected all their kind. Each carried a curved blade, a traditional weapon designed to find the gaps between armor plates. The edges gleamed in the harsh light. The fight began without warning. One moment the warriors were circling. The next, they were locked together in a blur of claws and steel. The crowd roared with approval. Linda watched without expression. She saw every move, every strike, every counter. She saw the patterns in their fighting styles, the weaknesses in their defenses, the openings they left when they attacked. She saw everything. The fight was brutal. Blood sprayed across the sand. Chitin cracked and split. One warrior took a deep cut across his shoulder, exposing the soft flesh beneath. He roared in pain but did not fall. He pushed forward, driving his opponent back. Around Linda, the Karath leaders were on their feet, screaming encouragement. The noise was deafening. The air vibrated with their passion. Linda remained seated, still, silent, watching. "You do not react," Voss observed, raising his voice to be heard over the crowd. "Does this violence disturb you?" "No." "Then why do you not cheer? Why do you not feel the excitement of the hunt?" Linda turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm and clear. "Because I am not here to be entertained. I am here to learn." "To learn what?" "Everything." She looked back at the arena. The warrior on the left favors his right side. He leads with his upper arms and uses his lower arms for defense. It makes him powerful in a direct assault, but it leaves him vulnerable to attacks from his weak side. The warrior on the right has noticed this. He's working to circle around. In approximately 30 seconds, he will win. Voss stared at her. Then he looked down at the arena. 20-8 seconds later, the warrior on the right slipped past his opponent's guard and delivered a devastating strike to his weak side. The crowd erupted. Voss turned back to Linda slowly. You analyzed their fighting styles in moments. Without training. Without experience in our combat forms. I observed. I analyzed. I predicted. Linda shrugged slightly. It is what humans do. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We do not have claws or armor or poison. What we have is the ability to see patterns, to understand systems, to predict what will happen before it happens. She gestured at the arena, where the victorious warrior stood over his fallen opponent, blade raised for the final strike. Your warriors are impressive. Their strength is undeniable. But strength without understanding is just force. It can break things. It cannot build them. The crowd was chanting for death. It was the tradition. The victor claimed the life of the defeated. But something strange happened. The young warrior looked up at the observation platform. He looked directly at Linda. She met his gaze without flinching, and then, slowly, he lowered his blade. The crowd went silent. This had never happened. In all the centuries of the proving, no warrior had ever shown mercy. It was unthinkable. It was against everything the Kareth believed. The young warrior spoke, his voice carrying across the sudden silence. I claim victory, but I do not claim his life. He fought with honor. He deserves to live and grow stronger. Next time, perhaps, he will defeat me. The silence stretched on. Linda could feel the tension in the air. This was a breaking point. A moment that could go either way. Voss rose slowly from his seat. Every eye in the arena turned to him. Why? He demanded. Why do you reject the ancient way? The young warrior straightened. Because I saw something today, High Predator. I saw a creature from another world sit among us without fear, without armor, without weapons. And I asked myself, what makes her so confident? What does she know that we do not? He gestured at his fallen opponent. We have been killing each other for centuries. And we are still the same. Still fighting. Still dying. Still alone in the universe. He paused. Perhaps it is time to try a different way. The crowd began to murmur. Some were angry. Some were confused. Some, surprisingly, seemed thoughtful. Voss sat back down. He did not speak for a long moment. Then he turned to Linda. You did something to him. I did nothing. I merely sat here and watched. You changed something. With your presence alone. Linda looked at the young warrior, who had now helped his opponent to his feet. The two former enemies stood together, united by something new. Something that had never existed in the arena before. I did not change him, she said quietly. I merely showed him that change was possible. He made the choice himself. Voss was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost uncertain. What are you, Ambassador Moore? Linda smiled. It was a gentle smile, not threatening, not challenging. Just warm. I am human, she said. And this is what we do. We walk into rooms full of warriors, and we make them question everything they thought they knew. Not through force, not through fear, through example. She stood and straightened her simple gray suit. That is why we do not need armor, High Predator. Our ideas are our armor, and ideas are much harder to kill than flesh and bone. The Vreth came on the 7th day. They came in a fleet of warships, their vessels dark and angular against the stars. They had been enemies of the Kareth for centuries, two predator species locked in an endless war over territory and pride. Now they had chosen this moment to strike, hoping to catch the Kareth while their attention was divided. High Predator Voss received the news in the middle of negotiations. A messenger burst into the chamber, armor dented and scarred from a battle fought somewhere among the stars. High Predator, the Vreth have entered the outer system. 40 warships. They are heading for our orbital stations. Voss rose immediately. His eyes were hard, his body tense. This was what he was born for. Battle. War. The hunt. But he hesitated at the door. He looked back at Linda, who remained seated at the negotiating table, calm as ever. "I must go," he said. "My people need me. The fleet needs me." "Then go," Linda replied simply. "Defend your people. I will wait." Voss shook his massive head. "If I leave you here, you will be in danger. There are factions in my government who oppose this alliance. They see humanity as a threat to our way of life. They would be happy to see you dead." Linda stood. In the harsh light of the chamber, her gray suit looked almost like armor. Her eyes were steady. Then they would learn an important lesson about humanity. What lesson? That we are harder to kill than we look. Voss wanted to argue. He wanted to leave guards, to arrange protection, to do something to ensure her safety. But something in her eyes stopped him. Something that told him she did not need his protection. Something that told him she had never needed it. He left with his fleet 3 hours later. Linda watched the ships rise from the surface and disappear into the sky. Then she returned to her quarters and waited. She knew they would come. She had been watching the political situation carefully. She knew which houses opposed the alliance. She knew which warriors whispered against her in the halls. She knew exactly how long it would take them to organize once Voss was gone. They came that night, 50 warriors, led by a Kareth named Torval. He was old, by Kareth standards. His chitin faded to a dull gray. But he was still strong, still dangerous. And he hated everything Linda represented. They stormed the diplomatic compound with weapons drawn, expecting to find a terrified human hiding behind locked doors. Expecting to find guards to fight, defenses to breach, obstacles to overcome. They found none of these things. Instead, they found Linda standing alone in the central courtyard. She wore her gray suit. She carried no weapons. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching them approach. Torval stopped at the edge of the courtyard. His warriors spread out behind him, surrounding the small human on all sides. "You knew we were coming," he said. "Of course. And you came out to meet us, alone, unarmed." He made the clicking sound that meant confusion. "Why?" Linda smiled slightly. "Because I wanted to have a conversation before you made a mistake you could not take back. There is no mistake. You are a poison, human. You are infecting our culture with your soft ideas." The young warrior who showed mercy at the proving was merely the first. "If we allow you to continue, you will destroy everything we are." "I am not destroying anything. I am offering an alternative. Your people can choose to take it or leave it." Torval raised his blade. "We choose to end it, here, now, with your blood." Linda did not move. She did not flinch. She simply spoke, her voice clear and calm. "Before you act, there are some things you should know. In the past hour, 27 of your communications officers received messages from Earth Federation intelligence. These messages contain detailed information about your families, where they live, where they work, where your children go to school." Torval froze. "Do not misunderstand," Linda continued. "These are not threats. Your families are safe. They will remain safe." But the messages also contained an offer: protection, security, a guarantee that no matter what happens here tonight, their loved ones will be cared for. She paused. 40% of your forces have already accepted that offer. They are not coming. Torval spun to look at his warriors. He counted. 50 had left the barracks. Only 30 stood in the courtyard. You, he breathed. You did this. I did nothing except give your warriors a choice. Some of them made one choice. Others made another. Linda shrugged. That is what freedom looks like. We will still kill you. 30 warriors is more than enough. Perhaps. But consider this. Linda looked up at the sky, at the stars glittering between the clouds. 3 days ago, an Earth Federation stealth ship entered this system. You did not detect it. Your sensors did not see it. Your scanners did not find it. It is still there, in orbit above this city. The warriors looked up involuntarily. They saw nothing but darkness. That ship carries weapons capable of reducing this courtyard to glass in less than a second. If I give the word, it will fire. She lowered her gaze to meet Torval's eyes. I will not give that word. Because I am not here to kill. I am here to negotiate. But you should understand what you are facing. Torval's blade trembled in his grip. He was not afraid, not exactly. But he was beginning to understand something that shook him to his core. This human was not helpless. She had never been helpless. Every moment since she arrived, she had been exactly where she wanted to be, doing exactly what she planned to do. Her vulnerability was not weakness, it was bait. You planned this, he said slowly. All of it. You knew we would come. You wanted us to come. I suspected you might. And I prepared for the possibility. Linda took a step toward him. Just one step. But several warriors stepped back. I always prepare. That is what humans do. We are not strong like you. We are not fast. We do not have armor or claws. But we think, we plan. We see the future before it arrives, and we shape it to our purposes. She spread her hands. I could have had you all killed the moment you entered this compound. The ship above would have done it without hesitation. But I chose not to. Because killing you would end the resistance to this alliance, but it would not win hearts. It would not change minds. It would just be force, and force alone never lasts. She looked at the warriors surrounding her. They were the strongest, fiercest beings on this planet, and they were afraid of her. I offer you the same choice I offered your warriors. Go home. Return to your families. Tomorrow, we will pretend this never happened. The alliance will continue, and perhaps in time, you will come to see that change does not have to mean destruction. It can mean growth. Torval stood very still. The blade in his hand suddenly felt heavy, useless. What kind of creature are you? He whispered. Linda met his eyes. In the starlight, her gaze was ancient, patient, utterly unafraid. I am human, she said simply, and I am offering you peace. Take it or leave it. The choice is yours. One by one, the warriors lowered their weapons. One by one, they turned and walked away into the night. Torval was the last to go. He stood before Linda for a long moment, studying her face, trying to understand what he was seeing. Then he turned and left without another word. Linda watched him go. Then she raised her wrist and spoke quietly into her communicator. Stand down the orbital platform and send word to Admiral Peterson. The situation is contained. She turned and walked back into the compound. Her footsteps soft and quiet in the empty courtyard. She was alone, unarmed, unprotected, and she had just defeated 50 warriors without raising a hand. High Predator Voss returned from battle on the 10th day. His fleet had won a great victory over the Vreth, destroying half their ships and driving the rest back to their home system. It was the kind of triumph that would be remembered for generations, celebrated in songs and stories. But Voss did not feel like celebrating the moment his shuttle touched down on Karath Prime. He was met with reports of what had happened while he was away. The attempted attack on the diplomatic compound. The mysterious human response. The warriors who had walked away without a fight. He went directly to find Linda Moore. He found her in the garden of the diplomatic compound, sitting on a bench beneath a twisted tree that bore fruit like drops of liquid fire. She was reading again, a book about Karath history. She looked up as he approached and set the book aside. "Hi, Predator. I heard the battle went well. Congratulations on your victory." Voss stopped a few meters away. He was still in his battle armor, still carrying the scars of combat. He had not stopped to rest. He had not stopped to eat. He had come straight here. "Tell me what happened," he said. Linda gestured to the space beside her on the bench. "Sit with me. It is a long story." He hesitated. Among the Karath, sitting as equals with another species was rare. It implied respect, partnership, trust. Slowly he lowered himself onto the bench. The stone creaked under his weight. 50 of my warriors came to kill you," he said. "And you walked into the courtyard to meet them, alone, without weapons." "Yes. Why?" Linda was quiet for a moment, looking out at the garden. The alien plants swayed in the warm breeze, their colors shifting in the light. "Because that is what I do," she said finally. "I walk into rooms full of people who want to hurt me, and I give them a reason not to." "How? What reason could you possibly give?" "The truth." She turned to look at him. "The truth that violence is easy, but peace is hard. The truth that anyone can destroy, but only the strong can build. The truth that the future belongs to those who can see beyond the moment and imagine something better." Voss shook his massive head. "My warriors do not respond to pretty words. They respond to strength. And that is exactly what I showed them." Linda smiled slightly. "I stood before 50 armed killers without a weapon in my hand and without fear in my heart. I told them I had the power to destroy them all, and I chose not to use it. That is strength, Predator. The strength to hold power and not abuse it. The strength to face death and not flinch." She reached out and placed her hand on his armored forearm. The gesture was gentle, almost tender. Your warriors understood that. Perhaps not with their minds, but with something deeper. They looked at me and saw something they had never seen before. A predator that did not need to hunt. A power that did not need to prove itself. Voss looked down at her hand. It was so small against his armor. So fragile. "My people have a name for you now," he said slowly. "They call you the silent predator. The one who hunts without moving. I am just a diplomat. No." He covered her hand with his own massive claw, a gesture that among his kind meant the deepest respect. "You are something more. You are proof that there are kinds of strength we have never understood. Kinds of power we have never imagined." He turned to look out at the garden, at the alien plants and the strange sky above. "For centuries, we have believed that the strongest survive, that the only law is the law of tooth and claw. We have built our entire civilization on this foundation. And then you came, small, soft, unarmed." He made a sound that might have been a laugh. "And you shook that foundation to its core. I did not come here to destroy your beliefs," Linda said quietly. "I came here to offer you something new. Not a replacement for what you are, but in addition to it. You can still be warriors. You can still be hunters. But you can also be partners, allies, friends." She stood and turned to face him. "Humanity has been where you are now. Long ago, we were hunters too. We fought and killed and conquered. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. But somewhere along the way, we learned that survival is not enough. That strength is not enough. That the only thing that truly lasts is connection, cooperation, the bonds between people that make us more than just collections of individuals." She spread her hands. That is what I offer you. Not weakness. Not surrender. Partnership. A chance to be part of something greater than any single species can achieve alone. Voss rose slowly from the bench. He towered over her, massive and powerful. But he did not feel powerful. He felt humbled in a way he had never experienced before. The treaty, he said. We will sign it tomorrow. Linda nodded. I would like that. But I want you to know something. He leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. I have been a warrior for over 100 years. I have killed more enemies than I can count. I have never feared anything or anyone in my entire life. He paused. You terrify me. Linda did not laugh. She did not smile. She simply met his eyes with that same calm, ancient gaze. Good, she said. Fear is the beginning of wisdom, and wisdom is the beginning of everything else. The treaty was signed the next morning in the great hall of the Kareth capital. Thousands watched as High Predator Voss and Ambassador Linda Moore pressed their marks to the document that would unite their peoples. Afterward, there was a celebration. Food and drink and music and dancing. The Kareth and the human delegation mingled together, learning about each other, taking the first steps toward something new. But Linda did not stay long at the celebration. She slipped away quietly, finding a balcony that overlooked the city. She stood there alone, watching the lights of the alien world spread out beneath her dot. She was tired. More tired than she had ever been. Holding so much power so carefully, never letting it slip, never showing weakness, never making a mistake. It took everything she had, but it was worth it. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned to see the young warrior from the proving, the one who had shown mercy. He approached hesitantly, unsure of himself. Ambassador, I wanted to thank you. For what? For showing me another way. Before you came, I thought there was only one path for a warrior. Kill or be killed. Win or lose. Now I know there are other choices. Linda smiled gently. The choices were always there. You just needed to see them. The young warrior was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since that day in the arena. What you did, facing 50 warriors alone. Were you truly not afraid? Linda looked out at the city, at the future that was just beginning to take shape. I was terrified, she said quietly. Every moment, every second. The fear was always there, whispering in my ear, telling me to run, to hide, to give up. She paused. But fear is not the enemy. Giving in to fear is the enemy. As long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep doing what you know is right, the fear cannot stop you. She turned to face him. That is the secret, young warrior. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not that we are fearless, not that we are unbreakable, but that we break and we bleed and we shake with terror and we do it anyway. We face the impossible and we refuse to look away. The young warrior stared at her for a long moment. Then he bowed his head in the Kareth gesture of deepest respect. I understand now, he said, why the galaxy will never be the same after meeting your kind. Linda placed her hand on his shoulder. The galaxy will be better, she said. That is a promise. From all of humanity to all of you. We will make it better together. And as she stood on that balcony, looking out at the alien stars, she knew it was true. The Kareth were just the beginning. There were 1,000 species out there, 1,000 worlds waiting to be reached. And humanity would reach them all, not with weapons, not with fleets, not with armor or noise or displays of power, with presence, with patience, with the quiet certainty of beings who knew exactly what they were, the most dangerous predators in the universe, and the most gentle.